We've told stories from 24 states, each one leaving behind a trace. A name whispered through static, a photograph that changes when no one's looking, a record that shouldn't exist. Now we've reached number 25, Missouri. And this set feels different. These stories don't just haunt the people who lived them. They question reality itself. Where time folds back, memories rewrite themselves, and proof disappears the moment you try to show it. After 25 states, you start to wonder if these stories are really separate, or if they've been connected all along. Prepare for a chilling glimpse into Missouri's hidden past. Step into a darker side of Missouri's history with this chilling true fact. The Lemp Mansion in St. Louis, once home to a prominent brewing dynasty, is infamous for a series of tragic suicides that plagued the family across generations. Beyond the well-documented deaths, a particularly eerie legend tells of a hidden, illegitimate son known as the Monkey Face Boy, who was allegedly kept secret in the mansion's attic his entire life. Visitors and staff at the Now restaurant and inn frequently report encounters with disembodied voices, unexplained apparitions, and objects moving on their own, making the mansion a tangible link to a deeply buried and tormented family past. This story came from a teacher named Erin. She worked at a small high school near Rolla, Missouri, and she swears what happened last spring still makes her question what's real. Erin had been teaching English for 11 years. Routine came easy. Same hallways, same students, same smell of dry erase markers and old books. Nothing strange ever happened at that school, until one week she got sick. Nothing serious, just a bad flu. She emailed the office Monday morning, told them she'd be out for the week, and spent most of her days half asleep on the couch. By Thursday, she felt better. She checked her email for the first time and froze. There were over 100 unread messages. Half were from students, all of them thanking her for a great week. "Thanks for helping me with my essay, Mrs. Owens. Loved the poetry lesson. Can you share that quote again? You said something about next week's quiz. Is it still happening?" She thought maybe they'd sent the messages by mistake. Maybe the substitute had used her account. But when she looked through her sent mail, she saw something stranger. Emails she didn't remember sending. Lesson plans, homework reminders, even a few personal replies, all written in her tone, her signature, her words. The timestamps matched the week she'd been home. She called the school secretary, Janice, to ask about the sub. Janice paused for a long time and said, "You didn't have a sub." Erin laughed. "What do you mean?" "Someone had to cover my classes." Janice said, "No one checked in under your name." "The kids said you came in anyway." That's when Erin's stomach dropped. She drove to the school that afternoon. Her classroom door was unlocked. On the whiteboard were notes from the week, exactly how she wrote them. Same handwriting, same blue markers she always used. She checked her desk. A stack of graded essays sat neatly in a pile. Her handwriting again. Except she hadn't graded them yet. She called in the principal, Mr. Hayes. He looked confused when she explained everything. "I was homesick," she said. "Someone else was in here teaching." He frowned and said, "You were here, Erin. I saw you every day. You even came to the staff meeting Wednesday." She tried to convince him otherwise, but he wouldn't budge. He even pulled up the security footage to prove it. And there she was, standing at her desk, writing on the board, wearing the same gray cardigan she'd left hanging in the closet that morning she got sick, laughing with her students. It was her, down to the smallest detail, except when she looked closer, something was off. The woman on the screen never turned her head toward the camera. Not once. Every frame showed her at the same slight angle, face hidden just enough that Erin couldn't see her eyes. Hayes said, "See? You were here." Erin whispered, That's not me." He chuckled nervously. "You must have forgotten. Maybe the fever." She didn't answer. She left the office, shaking. That night, she went through her bag and found a graded paper she didn't recognize. It wasn't from one of her students. The handwriting was neat, almost formal. The essay's title read, "Reflection and Repetition: The Pattern of Self." At the bottom, written in blue ink, was a comment. Her comment, "Well done. You understand it now." She didn't sleep. The next morning, she went back to the school before sunrise. She wanted to see for herself that everything was normal. The halls were empty. The janitor's radio echoed faintly from the far end. Her classroom light was off. When she opened the door, the whiteboard was clean. No writing, no papers, no trace of what she'd seen the day before. But there was something new. A single piece of chalk sitting on her desk, even though her room didn't have a chalkboard. Wrapped around it was a note. 2 words written in her own handwriting: "Stay home." She quit 2 weeks later, moved out of state, took a job tutoring online. But sometimes she says her laptop camera flickers just once when she's grading late at night. And she swears for a split second she sees a reflection sitting behind her. Same sweater, same posture, head turned just enough that she can't see the eyes. This story came from someone named Ben. He said it happened just outside Springfield, Missouri, on a road trip he took years ago with 3 friends. And to this day, he swears he's the only one who remembers it. They'd been driving back from a concert in Oklahoma City. It was late, around midnight, the highway empty and dark except for the occasional truck that passed in the opposite lane. Everyone was tired, hungry, and ready to crash at the next motel. But then, out of nowhere, they saw it. A glowing neon sign in the distance. Red letters buzzing through the dark. Open 24 hours. It looked like an old diner straight out of the 70s. Silver siding, wide windows, a flickering light over the door. They pulled in without thinking. Inside, it smelled like coffee and fried food. The booths were red vinyl, cracked and patched with duct tape. There was a ceiling fan spinning lazily, wobbling with every turn. A jukebox in the corner was playing something faint. Maybe old country music, but the words were too warped to recognize. The waitress looked tired but friendly. She asked what they wanted, poured coffee, and smiled like she'd been doing this every night for decades. Everything felt perfectly ordinary, except for one thing. There was a man sitting alone at the counter, gray hair, long coat, maybe in his 60s. He wasn't eating, he wasn't drinking, he was just watching them. At first, Ben thought he was another traveler, maybe lonely, maybe curious. But there was something off about him. He never moved, never blinked. Every time Ben looked up, the man's eyes were already waiting. It made him uncomfortable. Leah, his girlfriend, whispered, "That guy keeps staring." Her brother Chris just laughed and said, "Maybe he wants to join the table." Even Dana cracked a joke to break the tension. But the man didn't smile, didn't react. He just kept staring. When they finished eating and stood to leave, the man finally spoke. "You shouldn't go yet." His voice was calm, almost polite, but it froze Ben in place. The waitress didn't react. She kept pouring coffee like she hadn't heard a word. Ben laughed nervously. "We've got a long drive ahead of us." The man nodded slowly and said, "Then it's already too late." The way he said it made Ben's skin crawl. It wasn't threatening, just certain. They all hesitated for a second, then Chris shrugged it off. "Let's go." But when Ben reached for the door handle, it wouldn't move. He tried again. Nothing. It wasn't locked, it just wouldn't turn. Leah tried next, then Chris, then Dana. The handle stayed frozen, like it was welded shut. Ben turned back toward the counter, but the man was gone. The stool where he'd been sitting was empty. Then the lights flickered once. Just once. When they came back on, the diner was silent. No music, no hum from the coffee maker. Even the waitress was gone. Ben's heart started pounding. They shoved the door again, and this time it opened easily. They ran to the car, jumped in, and drove until they hit the state line. No one said a word. It wasn't until the next morning that Ben checked his phone. He'd taken one photo inside the diner. A quick group shot across the table. Leah and Chris were smiling. Dana was mid-bite. And behind them, near the counter, stood the man. Gray coat, still watching. Still staring straight at the camera. Ben showed the picture to the others, but they looked confused. Leah frowned. "Who's that supposed to be?" Ben said, "The guy at the diner. The one who told us not to leave." But they swore there was no one else there. They said the place had been empty. And worse, they insisted the diner wasn't even open. Dana said the parking lot had looked abandoned, that the lights were off when they pulled in. Chris said the building looked boarded up, like it hadn't been used in years. But Ben remembered the waitress, the coffee, the smell of grease in the air. He remembered it all vividly. They argued for hours until Leah started crying. She said she remembered stopping for food, but the inside was cold, dark, and empty. There were no other customers, no waitress, no one behind the counter. Ben thought maybe they were playing a prank on him, until they went back a week later. The neon sign was gone, the front windows were boarded up, the metal siding was rusted through, and a for sale sign hung crooked on the door, half buried in weeds. Through the cracks in the boards, Ben could see inside. Dust, cobwebs, a collapsed booth covered in leaves, no lights, no coffee smell, just decay. He showed the photo again, hoping they'd see the man this time, but the image had changed. The man was gone. The counter behind them was empty, no sign of anyone standing there. Just Ben and his friends sitting in a dusty booth that looked nothing like the one he remembered. That's when the fear set in. Not because the photo had changed, but because he remembered something else. When they'd left the diner that night, the man had said something under his breath. Something Ben hadn't heard clearly. He didn't think much of it then. But now, it was all he could think about. He pulled over on the side of the road and zoomed in on the photo. Behind his reflection in the glass window, there was faint writing. Letters scrawled backward, like someone had written them on the other side of the glass. It said, "You came back." Ben's stomach dropped. He asked everyone to look, but they couldn't see the writing. It was visible only through his screen. That night, when he tried to sleep, he dreamed of the diner. Same table, same booths. But this time, he was alone. The jukebox was playing that warped song again, only now he could make out the words. It was saying his name. When he woke up, his phone was on the nightstand, and the photo had changed again. Now, it was just the counter. No friends, no one sitting at the table. Only him. He deleted it immediately. But the next day, when he checked his gallery, it had reappeared. Same picture, same date. And in the corner, by the counter, the man was back, smiling. Ben doesn't take photos anymore. He says every time he tries, the camera flickers, like it's trying to focus on something behind him. And sometimes, when he's driving late at night through Missouri, he swears he sees that same neon glow on the horizon. A faint red sign that says, "Open 24 hours." No matter what direction he's going. No matter how far he's driven. He never stops anymore. He just keeps driving, because he knows if he ever pulls over again, the man will be waiting. This story was sent to me by a guy named Carson. He worked one summer on a riverboat near St. Charles, and after what happened, he won't set foot on anything that floats. I got a summer job working on a riverboat restaurant that docked on the Missouri River. You've probably seen the type: white railings, red paddle wheel, a fake steamboat look with buffet food and live music. Mostly tourists and retired folks. The boat didn't travel far. It just pulled away from the dock, cruised a bit, then circled back every night. Easy money, decent tips. We had a small crew, 4 in the kitchen, 2 servers, and 1 deckhand, this guy named Mitch. He was a little older than the rest of us. Quiet, worked hard, didn't talk much. We didn't hang out, but we got along fine. One Tuesday, we finished our evening cruise around 10:15 p.m. I helped close the dining area while Mitch tied us off at the dock. He was supposed to log out using the punch system near the galley door. We all did it at the end of every shift. I left before he did. The next day, he didn't show up. The boss assumed he overslept or flaked, but when we checked the time clock, it said Mitch had clocked out at 10:36 p.m. the night before. Which was weird, because I left at 10:30. I passed the punch clock and there was no one behind me. Mitch wasn't there. We tried calling. Nothing. His car was still in the lot. Phone went straight to voicemail. By the 3rd day, the police got involved. They searched the riverbank, dredged the shallow areas, even sent dogs through the woods near the dock. No sign of him, no personal stuff missing from the boat, no note. But here's where it got strange. That Friday night, we reopened the boat with a temporary replacement deckhand. Around 10:40 p.m., the manager checked the system and saw something that made him go pale. Mitch had clocked in. That night, 4 days after he vanished. We all crowded around the screen. It was his name, his ID number. Logged at 10:19 p.m. sharp. There was no punch card, just the digital log. And the only person near the machine at that time was me, and I swear no one used it. The manager ran a system check, said there was no way to manually add a log from outside the secured system, and even if someone had tried to spoof it, the timestamp would have shown the edit. But it didn't, it showed a clean punch-in. That same night, we found something else. In the crew break room, sitting neatly on the table, was Mitch's hat. Folded. He always wore that faded black Cardinals cap, wore it backward like a habit. We figured it fell overboard when he disappeared, but it was there. Dry. Clean. Folded like someone had just set it down. We reported it. They checked the cameras. No one had entered the break room in hours. I finished the rest of the summer but never stayed past close, and I never used the punch clock without glancing over my shoulder. They never found Mitch. But that time log, it's still in the system. This story came from a woman named Elise. She said she never really knew her father, and after what she found in that unit, she's not sure she ever will. When my dad passed away, I inherited a few of his things. We weren't close. He left when I was a baby and lived out in Missouri somewhere. I only met him once when I was 10, and it was awkward. After that, nothing. But after his death, a lawyer mailed me a key and a slip of paper with a number on it. 112. No return address. Just a storage facility name and address near Branson. I almost didn't go, but I was already driving through Missouri for work, and curiosity got the better of me. The storage place was run down. Chain-link fences, faded signs, gravel lot. I showed the manager the paper, and he pointed me to a row in the back. Unit 112 was a rusted orange door. When I pulled it up, dust blew out like the place hadn't been opened in years. Inside was furniture. Old stuff, couches, wooden chairs, a broken TV, a couple boxes labeled home movies, and one small footlocker with no label. I opened one box of tapes, all VHS black cases. some handwritten labels. Summer 1989, cabin, lake trip. No dates past 1990. Then I found the photographs, dozens of them. Loose, in a shoebox, all of my dad. But these weren't recent, they weren't even from after I was born. These were old photos. 1970s, maybe early 80s. Same guy, young, clean-shaven, wearing aviators or flannel. Sometimes alone, sometimes with groups of people I didn't recognize. Some were in diners, some in what looked like hospital rooms. But here's what bothered me. In every single photo, he was looking at the camera, and in half of them, he was smiling, like he knew the picture was being taken, but I don't think he was the one taking them. A few were close-ups, as if someone had taken them from just across the room. The creepiest one? He was asleep on a couch. Blanket pulled up, one arm over his face. Photo taken from inside the room. The hair stood up on my neck. I started flipping through them faster. Then I found one labeled on the back. Elise before. It was a photo of a nursery, pale green walls, a mobile, a crib. Same crib from my childhood photos. I never showed anyone that crib, that color, that room. I looked back in the footlocker and found a tape with a sticky note on it. Play me last. I didn't. I locked the unit back up and told the manager I wanted to cancel the rental. He said, "That one? Been paid up for years, auto renewal, never got a call." I left the key on the counter and drove 6 hours without stopping. I still have that tape. I keep it sealed in a drawer. But sometimes I wonder who filmed all those clips, who took those pictures, and who labeled that box before. This story came from someone named Jamie. She worked at the county fair every summer until the PA system said her name. I've worked the Boone County Fair every year since I was 15. Grew up on a little farm outside Columbia, so the livestock barn was home turf. Hay bales, prize pigs, sweaty kids in boots chasing rabbits around. You get it. I was 22 the last year I worked there. Nothing fancy, just helping run the check-in table, making sure the kids signed their animals in and keeping the barn from turning into chaos. Everything felt normal, until the second night. Around 9 p.m., after the crowd thinned out, I was sweeping the walkway near the sheep pens. That's when I heard it. A voice came through the PA speaker above the barn entrance. It was low, static-filled, like someone talking through an old radio. Just one word, Michael. Then silence. There was no announcement scheduled for that time, and the speaker was only hooked into the fair's central PA, which shut down after sunset. I asked around. No one else heard it. I let it go. Weird glitch, maybe. But the next night it happened again. Same time, same warped voice, different name, Tracy. I checked the clipboard. No one named Tracy had signed in that day, and no one else mentioned hearing it. By the fourth night, I started hanging around just to see if it would happen again. I even recorded it on my phone. That night, it didn't say a name, just static. Then a soft laugh. A dry, raspy chuckle that cut off like someone hung up an old landline. I showed it to the barn coordinator the next day. She brushed it off, said maybe someone was playing a prank, or a shortwave radio was bleeding into the line. But the system wasn't wireless, and the feed ran through the fair office, which was locked at night. On the sixth night, everything changed. I stayed late, helping clean up spilled feed. Around 9:07, I heard the speaker click on, and then clear as day. Jamie, my name, not static, not warped, said exactly how my mom says it when she's serious. Flat. Quiet. I froze. The barn was empty except for me. No kids, no animals awake. I walked outside and looked at the tower. The red light at the speaker was off, no signal. I went straight to the fair office. It was locked, lights off, no one inside. Next day I quit. Told them I had a family emergency. I never went back to that fair, but sometimes when I drive past the fairgrounds in August, I swear I hear my name again. Just above the engine noise. Faint, distant, like someone's still waiting for me to answer.